Yes. So we started the series back in June with an overall overview of what is it when we talk about sustainability, when we talk about greater good, and what circularity means. And then we moved on and discussed about circular business model, how to apply system thinking to leverage, circularity and sustainability. And then we continued with some examples with Zloop and Amazon. And now we are with the retrofitting, and we will focus on this new solution for reaching net zero transportation. Can you move to the next slide? Yes, so circularity. So just in a nutshell, the idea about is to move from the linear business model to circular business model. And basically it's to move from the make, use, and waste, dispose, to a more circular model where you reduce the level of extraction from the natural resources. And once you make your items, when you produce, and once products are being used, you try at the end of their life to reuse them or to make them re-enter some sort of loop or a cycle, so that you reduce the amount of elements that are disposed. And you can also additionally try to find a way to make them participate to regeneration of the natural systems. So this graph that we show is like in a nutshell the 6 strategies to keep products in use. We talk about reuse, reduce, repair, refurbish, remanufacture, recycle, and repurpose. So I think we can move to the next slide.
Yes. So
Julien.
Yeah. So now that we gave Juanita gave us a reminder about circular economy, we wanted to apply this and see some example of how it could be applied to the transport industry. So very quickly, what we'll do is we'll put the problem, state the problem. What is the problem we want to solve? Then we will present our 2 guests today and what they are offering, what is their offering regarding retrofit. And after that, we'll have a session of question and answers. So we have already some questions we could start with, but the idea is really for the audience to put questions also. And for that, I would suggest you put questions in the chat, and Juana and Manuel will help me to read through the questions from the audience and ask you to ask directly the question during the Q&A session. Okay. So problem statements. First is, we do need transport. Until we invent a way to kind of teletransport ourselves, transport will be needed, and this is needed for human being to communicate, to see the world, but also just to grow, exchange goods, and basically have a development. So it is basically a support for our development activities. So when we talk about sustainable development, is how can we still have transport but not have the side effect and the negative impact of transport? And this negative impact, as you can see here, is actually quite significant. So these are numbers coming from the International Council on Clean Transportation. So when we talk about global impact of transport, transport represents 25% of CO2 globally emitted. So this will directly impact the global warming for 1/4 by transport. It has also a lot of impact on the outside of global warming on the health of people. So now we'll go, if we talk about sustainability, the way of living, there are a lot of discussion about reducing the spread of cities, to actually reduce the amount of transport you need to go from point A to point B. But if you, increase the proportion of people in cities, then you start to see issues about pollution and 90% of the people living in cities do see some air pollution exceeding the World Health Organization limits. Now, if we take the 25% of global emission and we kind of transport this into a degree Celsius, you know, we have a global target of avoiding staying within the 1.5 degrees Celsius global warming, with a hard target of transport actually represent 0.5 degree impact of this 1.5. So if we consider the 1.5, sorry, if everyone could please mute their microphone. Yeah. If we consider this 1.5 target, you know, actually working on transport would have a very big impact. Now, how do we do this this transition? So today is not really to look at what are the technical solutions, but just to give you an idea on what is the, again, the problem statement. Okay, transport has very big impact. We want to reduce emissions of transport. Now, in 2020, there were 1 billion cars on the roads in 2020, and every year we add 25 million to this number. So even if we say, and this is like one of the big study done by Ricardo actually for the European Commission, even if we say battery electric vehicle or fuel cell vehicles are the best solution to reduce the CO2 emission, you still need to take into account, okay, we start with an actual fleet of 1 billion cars, and you know, what is the good solution? Should we just remove this 1 billion cars and replace them by 1 billion of new cars, EVs or fuel cell? This would mean a lot of waste, as Juanita mentioned. So this is where we say, okay, how can we transition and have a fleet of zero emission cars in 2050 without wasting, you know, while maximizing the cars we already have on the road? And this is where retrofit might be a solution. Okay, so now panel discussion. First, I would propose for Arnaud and Andrew to introduce themselves. So the idea here is maybe we start with Arnaud introduction, and then you'll have, as we discussed, 5 minutes to pitch your company and your service offering. So I will share your document if it's okay. Tell me if you can see it.
I can see it.
Okay, so floor is yours. Yeah, roughly try to stay within the 5-8 minutes. And
5-8 minutes.
Yeah, and then we'll go through the Q&A. I think a lot of the answers will be covered.
Okay, for each slide, you're gonna have to push. I have to tell you, or I can do it.
Yeah, if it's okay. If I can guess, I will do it by guessing. Yeah.
Okay, so go back, please. So my name is Arnaud Pignides. I'm a French entrepreneur. I'm doing what we call retrofitting in France, but this is something called electric conversion in America and in English-speaking countries. I discovered a retrofit back in 2015, 2016, when I lived quite suddenly in California, and I had the old car that was breaking all the time, and I had the Tesla that was great, amazing, but a little bit ugly on my point of view. And I did my first retrofit as a client back in California in 2016 on the old Porsche, and I was the happiest guy in the world because I had something that changed the world, and that was quite good looking. And after this experience of being a customer, when I came back to France in 2017, retrofitting was very small in America, very, very small in England, very small in Germany, because laws didn't allow it, but especially as well because the whole ecosystem of electric suppliers and fuel cells were not existing. So it was only the beginning of Tesla, only the beginning of the electric vehicles that we are aware now. But that was very the beginning, and it was only 5 years ago. Okay, so can you believe it? How quick it changed? So I created my company, Rev. mobilities, and I created the retrofit in France because I needed to change the law to do it. So this is my little milestone, my little achievement, my little Oscar. I did create the law that allows to change and to retrofit vehicles from motorbikes to school buses in France, and this allowed me to explain what is retrofitting, what is upcycling, because we call that upcycling at REV of mobilities. So I'm going to do the presentation. What we do is retrofitting with batteries, with hydrogen as well. It takes a lot of time because it's a new energy and a new industry that is coming, and Symbio and our host is well aware of, and we are doing a lot of impact. We are reducing greenhouse gases like it's insane, and this is what you're going to see. And our hashtag, it's decarbonate now, because the thing is to decarbonate. So now it's possible to decarbonate mobilities thanks to the retrofit. Anywhere in the world, you can, depending on the law and the regulation, you can change engines, so ICs and emitting engines from vehicles into electric with batteries or with fuel cell. So you can pass. Why we have to rush as well? And I want to mention all the COP 21, 22, 26, and all the Kyoto protocols. But in fact, we have 3 years to reverse the trend. We are polluting too much. We are emitting too many greenhouse gases. If you look in France, it's 450 million tons of CO2 per year, and transportation, especially cars. So we have 44 million cars in France. For cars, it's 20% of the emissions. So this is too much. We have to reduce that by 80%. So that's a huge goal. We have to do that very quick. We have to do that in less than 15 years, maybe 10. It could be better if it's in 5 years. But we have to reduce, and the transportation and the cars are the worst, but also the best to reduce. So I told you 45 million vehicles. I speak only about France, but Europe, it's 333 million vehicles, 98% are ICs. And if you see the market, you realize that there's a market of new. It's good to have new cars or new electric cars or new low emission cars. But in fact, if you take France, new cars, it's only 300,000 per year. So if you replace 45 million by 300,000, it's going to take more than 50 or 60 years. And even if by 2035, because Europe banned the sale of combustion engine in cars, and that's going to take forever. But we have to go quicker. So this is the truth, the fact now, 45 million vehicles. What do we do with them? So as laws are moving, all the legislators, all the countries decided to act. They decided to change that. So we have a lot of low emission zones that are coming in Europe. So I'm speaking mostly in Europe, but it's going to be the same everywhere in the world. I can mention Shanghai, who banned all the electric bicycles and all the gas bicycles and motorbikes, and everything now is electric. But also Paris, Lyon, London, Milano. So 300 zones that are going to ban the polluting cars. Everything that is over 15 years is going to be banned. So that makes a lot of waste. That makes a lot of cars and trucks and vans and buses that are in a very good shape, with a chassis that is quite good to maintain, to change. The solution is retrofit. Retrofit, I'm going to tell it, it's very easy. It existed like 120 years ago before ICE and the essor of and the growth of gas and petrol. it's just to put an electric engine and some batteries to go from place A to place B. And it says like that, it's very easy, but in fact, it's like doing a new car into an old car. So if you take a motorbike, it's like a new motorbike inside an old motorbike. If you take a bus, a school bus, that we are redoing something totally new with batteries that are new, that can last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, depending of the need. So it's good for the planet. It's good for the final user because you save money by not buying a new car, a new vehicle. It's good for employment because vehicles that are in France or in Europe transformed and retrofitted in France and Europe, it's some jobs in France and Europe, and the same for all the countries in the world. And it's good as well for the quality of life because less noise, less problems of driving, because when you have a manual transmission for delivery trucks, it makes a lot of noise. It's very tiring for the driver. The same for the buses. Electric, it's more smooth, so it's a better life for our ears and for our lungs. So it's quite a good solution.
Yeah, so just conscious of time. So if now I would suggest you present what Rev Mobility is providing as a service, and then we go to Andy and start the Q&A, if it's okay, Arnaud.
Okay, so let's show me the one after.
This one? No,
so
yeah.
You're going to have the presentation. So this is explaining what is retrofitting. I'm going to stick on this one. If you don't
Which
mind.
one? This one?
The greenhouse gases. So we have in France a study that was for me a huge statement, a study from the French Government Association about environment that's called ADEME, who made a life cycle analysis of retrofitting. And comparing and keeping a diesel vehicle like a school bus, like a truck, it's more than 87% of greenhouse gases reduction by not redoing a chassis, by just changing from diesel to electric. It's 87%. For a truck or a utility van, for a car, it's about 60 to 65%. This is a lot. When I told you transportation cars are 20% of the emissions of France, if we're reducing by 60%, it's going to be only 6% of the emissions because we're going to make it well lower. So now I'm going to introduce you about what we do at Rev Mobilities. So Rev Mobilities is a retrofitter. So we have a supplier of technologies of retrofitting. So if you want to continue to the slide, continue. So everything is going to be sent to you. So you're going to be
this one, yeah.
So this one. So we are an upcycling mobility group. So our aim is not to do only cars, not to do only one kind of vehicle, is to retrofit and upcycle everything. Upcycling, it's not only retrofitting, it's also to remanufacture, to help the vehicles to stay longer and to last longer. And this is what we're going to do. So we are a society with a mission. We are very active and very militant. I don't know the word in English, but we are very, very active on the fight to give a second life or third life to vehicles. What we do, we have 4 different units, business units. So if you can continue again. So we have Retrofuture, that is for all cars. This is something quite huge because it started in the States. So it started with my little car in California, but actually we have a lot of demand. On my own French website, we have more than 15,000 users per month coming to the website. We have more than 200, so it seems still small, but it's a niche, 200 quotes, 200 people want to buy retrofitted old cars per month. That's a lot. Imagine it's more than 1,500 per year. It's huge. For professional vans, it's a huge market. In France, there are 6 million vans and utility vehicles. We have a huge demand from big companies, for two little craftsmen who are delivering food. And they won't be able to go in cities, so they prefer not to waste, not to buy a new one and to redo a new equipment because everything is equipped. So we do these professional vehicles that are too expensive as a chassis and the transformation to be thrown and to be replaced by new ones. And we have also bus and truck, and this is the first joint venture we created with a German company called Pepper. We do that on school buses. I know it happens as well in America, in England too, but this is something that is possible now and that is blooming because in France, for instance, we just had the four first tenders for 200 school buses from city of Rouen, city of Lyon, and Nice, and this is just the beginning. Don't forget that it's brand new, nothing was existing 2 years ago, and this is something that is blooming right now. And then we have also, and this is a discussion we have with Julien with his current work, but hydrogen, it's electric as well. It's it's good because hydrogen can be green hydrogen, and it can be something very interesting to replace gas and to replace also the weight you have to do for batteries. It's because batteries can be a waste too. If you put too much batteries and too much range on vehicles that are doing only 50 kilometers or 60 miles a day, it's totally useless. We won't put as many batteries as the Tesla in all the cars in the world. There's 1 billion cars. So hydrogen is a good opportunity to transform heavy vehicles, to transform vehicles that have a big use. And this is something that we're going to start in 2023. But I can tell you today that we're going to have our first bus hydrogen in 2024, Q1 2024. So this is something totally new that is reducing greenhouse gases like crazy, and that is good for the excuse me. That is good for the wallet because it's way less expensive, and that's good for everything. Voila.
Thank you, Arnaud. Very good. So Andy, I will share also your document. So maybe you start by introducing yourself and while I'm putting the slides on, if it's okay.
Yeah, so nice to meet you all. Yeah, my name's Andy. I had the pleasure, I used to work with Julien when he used to work at Ricardo. Yeah, I've been at Ricardo the last couple of years. I've been heavily focused on hydrogen fuel cell projects and vehicles, and I'm recently taken over as head of electrification at Ricardo, so looking after batteries, motors, power electronics, hydrogen fuel cells, and integration of systems. So but yeah, today it's all about I think a very relevant project to this, which we completed earlier this year, which was repowering of a diesel bus with a hydrogen fuel cell system. So yeah. Just a couple of very quick slides on Ricardo. You may have heard of us, you may not have done. We're a global organisation, strategic engineering and environmental consultancy. So historically, we were all about automotive, but we've diversified in the last 5-10 years. Annual revenues of about 350 million with around 3,000 people globally. But yeah, our focus is, as you can see along the bottom there, automotive, rail, energy, environment, and defence, and knitting those things together. So very much sustainability focused. Just to give you a feel, I mean, we do all types of technologies. So as I said, we cover batteries, but my focus has been on hydrogen, and this is a hydrogen repowering project that we've done. But we've done it on trains, we've done it on ships, we're doing it on a plane, and we've just done it on a bus. So today we're talking about our project with a bus. So go on, flip forward. So to give you context for it, so we were approached by a UK bus operator back in 2020. They had a bunch of buses that they're very sustainability focused. So the head of engineering there is very much into zero emissions, circular economy. So he would love this forum. I invited him along, but unfortunately he's on holiday today, so he couldn't join us. But yeah, he basically wanted to explore whether it would be possible to retrofit some of their buses. And he very much felt that for them, hydrogen was the right solution. So as Arnold was saying earlier, absolutely, there's a place for battery, there's a place for hydrogen. For him, he wanted longer ranges for the operating cycle, so he was keen on hydrogen. And they very much see the opportunity of extending life of buses. I think in the UK, typically buses are used for around 15 to 18 years. but if they're maintained properly, there's nothing to stop them, their chassis running for 25, maybe even longer years. And so that was where they were coming from. And so we started to look at it, and as an organization, we were interested to learn from the process as well. And so we decided to invest some of our own money, and we also got some UK government funding. And we decided that we'd do a repowering of a diesel bus in the UK. And the benefits: zero emissions, so zero CO2, zero particulate, zero NOx. As Arnold said, there's a big saving versus a new bus in terms of the embedded carbon that you have to that you use to create the chassis of the bus. The value we've got there is it's proportioned on the fact that a repowered bus won't last as long as a new one, but still significant savings. Pricing wise, we initially hoped that it would be a lot cheaper, but having gone through the process, it's going to work out around half the price of a new bus. And that assumes you get a reasonable volume, maybe 250 to 300 buses. But the benefits there are, this is really unaffordable, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, for bus operators to replace their bus fleets, which they're trying to do. So the fact that it's 50% less does provide a significant opportunity in reducing capital outlay. But as you guys will know, it's a circular economy forum. So yeah, we extend the life of a serviceable bus. It's the right thing to do, and that's where a lot of businesses are going as well. Julian, if you skip forward one. So you get very different feedback from the industry. So if you're investing in zero emission vehicles, lots of people want them to be nice and shiny. I had comments back from some operators, which was, well, you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. So therefore, they'd much rather have a nice, brand new, shiny bus. But if you look at what actual customers want, they want their bus to be on time, they want a friendly driver, they want it to be clean, they really don't care how old the bus is. And so there's some aspects which new buses are driven politically rather than by what's the right solution for the customer. In terms of the cost, so this is driven by a challenge within the UK market, but based on the typical number of vehicles that are being retired each year just to maintain the fleet size, the fleet age profile in the UK means that between now and 2025, just to replace the buses that are being taken out of service due to age with diesels, it's going to move from 320 to 580 million a year. That's unaffordable. However, a battery electric bus is a lot more expensive than a diesel bus. So that takes you up, if you want to do it with a zero emission bus, to 950 million a year. But battery electric buses don't meet all the duty cycles. So therefore you need some hydrogen fuel cell buses. So you're somewhere between 950 and £1.25 billion a year to replace retired buses with zero emission buses if you go new. And that's where, if you can do it for half the price to extend the life of vehicles, that's where retrofitting really can make an economic impact. Okay, so a few slides just on our journey. So we picked a double-decker bus because we've got those in the UK and they're a bit different, aren't they? So, but it's a higher asset value, and having a higher asset value, it increases the justification for retrofit. We stripped out the engine, we stripped out the rear axle, and then if you move forwards, you can see, so we tried to adopt a modular design. So we tried to make it something that would fit more than one type of bus. The bus we picked it because it's got the smallest space at the back. So if we could design a solution for this bus, the idea is relatively simple to transfer it to other buses. So three main modules: the tanks, the fuel cell module itself, which has got the fuel cell system, the power electronics, the thermal system, the ancillary pumps. So batteries is easier than hydrogen fuel cells. I say that much. A hydrogen fuel cell bus has a battery and a fuel cell system, but it's also got a lot of complex ancillaries around it to manage it. And then you've got an electric axle. So three main modules. If you move forwards, so that's it being assembled in the workshop. And there's various challenges around working with hydrogen, but we overcame them. We did our first test drive, so that you can see it chugging along just on the outskirts of a local airport that we use for our test driving. And remarkably, I say remarkably because I respect our engineers, but it all went remarkably smoothly. And then I'm very proud because I realized I'd made it when we appeared on the front page of Coach and Bus Weekly, which is my career achievement so far. But there's our bus driver up in the West Midlands, up in Middlesbrough. We worked with Stagecoach on this, so the Stagecoach driver was driving it all around the Middlesbrough area. But we've proven that we can do it. We know the cost of doing it. Where we're at the moment is government policy at the moment incentivizes the purchase of new buses. It doesn't support and subsidize retrofits in the UK, at least. I think that's changing across Europe, and it's likely to change in the UK. But that's one of the big challenges at the moment. I think there is a business case for it. There is certainly a sustainability case for it, but at the moment, a few more things need to align in terms of funding and availability of subsidies to support retrofits. But yeah, that's our story.
Thank you very much. So as you see, so Andy is from the technology supplier side, Arno really as a retrofit. So as I said, I have prepared some questions, but I've also looked at the chat, and there are already some questions aligned with what I had planned. So one of the questions which is interesting is, if you look at the business model, is the relationship with the OEMs. So of course, OEMs, what they want to do is, they have their first reaction is try to sell new cars, right? So they could see extending the life of their asset they already sold one time as a value that they could lose. So actually, especially if someone else is doing the retrofit, so basically taking the place of a new vehicle that they would have sold. So when you discuss with OEM, Andy and Arno, how do the OEM see the retrofit? Do they see it as a competition? Do they consider retrofitting themselves? And how supportive are they for you to actually have the right technical data, etc., to put a new powertrain into their existing vehicles?
Do I go first? I'm happy to. So in the UK, we approached a couple of the main bus OEMs. We've not approached any passenger car OEMs because we've not been targeting that market. But one was not interested at all. I think saw it very much as a threat. They want government subsidy to help them develop new vehicles, and therefore they weren't interested in talking at all. The other one, very interested, but at the moment their focus remains on development of new zero-emission vehicles, and therefore they at the moment don't have the financial capacity to invest in retrofitting as well, but very much more open to it and willing to engage. So very different perspectives depending who you talk to.
To continue the point of Andrew, you have to separate heavy transportation than passenger cars. It's two different markets and it's two different OEMs. In the heavy vehicles market, it's more common to work as an ecosystem. For example, we work with Mercedes trucks, we work with Iveco, with Renault trucks to work on their vehicles because it's a good opportunity to do something, and the competition is not against the close competitor. It's also coming from many countries that are quite far in the EV, in the electric market. For passenger cars, there are some brands that are sort of laboratories for car makers. I can tell you that BMW, so Mini, is doing retrofitting of all Minis in England. Jaguar tried to do it back then in 2017. Volkswagen helps one of my competitors in Germany. Renault is starting to implement retrofit solutions and are talking with us. It's a bit slower because they have a lot of work to electrify their vehicles and to answer to the demand. So we are working simultaneously. We are working together, but everyone has his job to do, and that's already a big challenge for everyone.
Okay, and so just to stay a bit more on this topic, so usually OEMs, still on the business model, OEMs take a lot of revenue from the kind of warranty, after sales, parts replacement, etc. In the case of retrofit, how do you manage, after sales and warranty between you and the initial OEM?
Want to go first? So
I don't know, maybe, yeah.
For me, so we are at the beginning of the thing, and so in the bus and the trucks is starting to be more prominent, and but retrofit of cars is starting right now in many countries. So I cannot tell you exactly, but as a French perspective, and with the French law and the French norms and regulations we have to follow, we are car makers. So we are car makers that makes a new operation on cars. This is something that we can do with the manufacturer, with the original manufacturer and the OEM, because it's a new operation that was not existing before. Before there was a sale, the maintenance of the warranty, and then the maintenance until it breaks and they buy a new one. But we can offer a fourth operation that is something that is quite new, but that interests a lot of car makers, and especially all the garage working for the car makers. So it's something that is starting to bloom.
Okay. Maybe last question from me before going to the audience. So you mentioned different targets for retrofit, and actually I put some picture. It could even go further. So there are people doing retrofit on bikes. So Switch is a UK company, or scooter. Noil. So from your experience, which market do you see? Which market has the best potential right now for retrofitting, or where there is the main demand?
Because batteries and fuel cells are expensive and hydrogen is only at the beginning, retrofit is very interesting where it's quite cost effective. That means on vehicles that have a huge value of usage, and we need the TCO, so cost ownership, that is quite interesting. Buses, it's the main market. Trucks, so heavy trucks, it's a blooming market, and hydrogen will be a big part of it. Delivery vans, everything that is for interventions, firemen, all these kind of vehicles that cost a lot are the first target for retrofitting, because they are working in cities, but they are polluting in cities. So they are the first chassis to be changed. And then all cars, it's a niche that is growing, but it's a niche, and I'm very proud of doing it, because bicycle, it's a big niche that is blooming in many countries, but this is a retrofitting too. The only problem for passenger cars or for motorbikes is that right now the market is very small, and it's too expensive to buy something new. Then even the batteries for little passenger cars, from our point of view, because we have our volume are low, it's too expensive to replace. In the future, when it's going to go down, we're going to be able to do it. But right now, it's mainly on the most important vehicles that needs to be retrofitted. It's buses, trucks, commercial vehicles with a special usage, and some niche like bicycle and all cars.
Is it the same from your point of view, Andy, as well?
Yes.
Yeah, so I would agree. It's high value assets, hence we've gone for buses. It's also assets that have got a long life, because heavy duty trucks tend to have a shorter life, for example, maybe 5 to 10 years versus a bus, which can be 10, 15, or even, 15 to 20 or longer. So it needs a high value, long life, but we also need to warrant the solution. So it needs to be, and that's what drives the price up, is making sure that you've got a good, robust solution as well. I was going to say one of the other challenges is that the perceived cost of CO2 at the moment, the cost of the embedded CO2, the perceived cost of the CO2 is relatively low. It's measured in different ways by different people. If that increases, that will help the business case again. But right now, yes, you save CO2, but what's the perceived cost of that and the cost benefit of it as well? So that's one of the things that also influences the selection of vehicle, I think.
Yeah, Juana, you wanted to
I just say that we have a couple of questions, one
Yep.
from Margaret, another one for Jan. So maybe Margaret, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi there. Yeah, so I was just wondering how easy it is to produce this new type of fuel like hydrogen. I know BMW tried to do it like years ago, but they didn't catch for some reason. And what will it take to have the pumps all over, I don't know, US or Europe?
So, Grant, I share my view. So it's definitely doable, but at the moment there isn't much green hydrogen available. To be honest, there isn't much hydrogen available. One of the biggest challenges we had with our bus project was actually finding a source of hydrogen. At the moment, the only way we can refuel our bus is by driving it 70 miles to Heathrow Airport, where they've got one pump that we can use. And that's not green hydrogen. Now, there's huge amounts of investment going into it globally, but especially across Europe, in the UK, in the US as well. So it will come. But yeah, there isn't the volume of manufacture at the moment, but it's projected to increase rapidly, and there aren't many refueling stations. More across Europe, I think, certainly quite a few across California, but not that many in the UK, but they're projected to rise. So yeah, it's the whole chicken and egg, which is the supply chain of hydrogen there versus the supply of the vehicles. So, but I think there's investment on both sides, which will help.
So if people are coming, sorry.
If I can just add to what Andrew has mentioned, this is Harpreet from Netherlands, by the way. I think Andrew mentioned something very succinctly, that you're looking for something long life, and it adds business value. There are a few business cases, at least that I've heard of in Netherlands, where they're looking to put fuel cells on vehicles which come back to their base. So you can think of all the municipal garbage collection vehicles or buses which are coming back to the bases. Then it's easier, not easy, but easier to install green hydrogen. And specifically, I think with North Sea projects, hopefully going live next year or thereafter, these business cases should evolve. So I think I just wanted to add to what was mentioned by Andrew.
I agree.
Thank you. I think we have a question for John. John, do you want to go ahead?
I think that was me. I was wondering, coming back to Arnaud, did you mention, and you might have, what % of the cars in France, for example, are used versus new? You might have mentioned that very quickly, because the retrofit, we want to know how big the population of or percentage of the used cars on the road.
you on mute, Arnaud.
Oh, I'm not.
Sorry. Before COVID, the market of new cars, new vehicles in France was 2 million. So if you take 45 million vehicles, it takes 23 years average to change the entire fleet.
Wow.
Now it's 1.5 million, so it's a bit more, 1.6 million next year, but and maybe it's going to go back to 2 million in a few. But it's 2 million of low emission vehicles right now. 90% is still of sales are still ICEs and diesel and gas vehicles.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to get at which ones would be most eligible for retrofit. What % are used that are 5 years, 10 years old?
I'm going to tell you the entire fleet of 45 million. It's 32 million of passenger cars. That is the most complicated market to address now.
Oh, okay.
6 million utility vans and trucks and small trucks, 6 million. So they are the most important to change. There's 100,000 buses. 100,000 buses that are mainly diesel in France, and there are 600,000 trucks, so heavy trucks. So that's already a market between utilities and all cars that are 1.2 million. So for antiques and classic cars, plus the buses and the trucks, that's already more than 7 million vehicles to be part of the change.
Yeah, that's terrific. And just to add on to what Harpreet was mentioning, I think we have some hydrogen stations beginning to show up in some of the gas stations here in Palo Alto, but Palo Alto is not typical. I think we have faster adoption of new technology, but I have seen some of these pumps in a regular gas station, but as an add-on, just mentioning that.
Yeah, thank you. So I think Marianne, you just put the question on the that was not mentioned. Do you want to ask the question directly?
Sure. Thank you so much. This is very interesting, especially for me. I come from the oil industry. It's not a secret, but I'm very interested in what we're doing next and this energy, like we call it in our company, transformation and evolution. Okay, we're very committed for that. To be part of it. So what happens after the retrofit? I was thinking, I retrofit my car, right? Are we preparing mechanics or future service providers to deal with these new, new cars and new technology?
So I've got some insight to this. So on the bus side, bus operators tend to do their own maintenance. So therefore, they would have their own capabilities put in place. So there are some bus operators in the UK currently operating hydrogen fuel cell fleets, and they've had to invest in sensors and that sort of thing to be able to work with hydrogen. But that's something that they've done. So I think at that sort of level, yes. I'm also aware there's an organisation in the UK that supports all of the vehicle insurers that looks at how vehicles are repaired, and they're looking at projects to try and upskill repair companies, repair shops, maintenance companies in how to work with hydrogen. So they've been doing a lot around electric vehicles, because obviously working with high voltage is very different from working with diesel and petrol. But they recognise that hydrogen will be coming, and therefore they're positioning themselves so that they can start helping and supporting repair workshops to gain the capabilities. But it's going to be a way off. I mean, how many hydrogen vehicles are there at the moment? But those organizations are starting to look at it, I guess, is my message.
Maybe one comment from my side as well. So working for Symbio in hydrogen. So as you said, Andy, because the critical mass of the fleet of hydrogen is pretty low right now and in the coming years. So two strategies, as Harpreet mentioned. There is the case of fleet, like delivery fleet that are owned by a fleet operator, and the fleet operator will have their own warehouse, workshops, and they will train their own people to work with hydrogen. And then if you look at OEMs, etc., they would develop like expert repair center, in the region. So they'll try to map out and train. So they cannot have all the workshops able to work with hydrogen, but they will try to have a sufficient density of workshop that could do it in a specific territory. As for electric vehicles, as you said, Andy, I think the trend now is that most of the workshops are training on high voltage, because you would need it anyway with battery electric vehicle or fuel cell vehicles.
Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking, I have boys in high school, right? And I see a lot of their peers and going to Millstream, going to those schools. I was thinking, what can we do, right, to start introducing these concepts and prepare this next generation of mechanics so they have the tools to help with, to be able to fix and provide services on these vehicles. Thanks for the insights.
I actually have a question, if it's okay, because so Marianne, you said you're working on for oil company. So I had one question around, one technical solution we did not mention for net zero transition is e-fuel. So the fuel creation of fuel that are also net zero. Recently the CEO of Volkswagen mentioned that. So is it something, Andy, on the technical side that you see, technology side that you see coming at a scale? And would we see also retrofits for that? So instead of putting a new, electric battery on an old car, for example, old Ferrari, you don't put a battery technology, you just change the fuel to be able to, for the engine to cope with the e-fuel.
So I'm afraid, Julie, you're touching on the edge of my knowledge on this one, so I could give an opinion, but it'll be very uninformed. So I'll let someone else comment that.
So Arno, is it something you see on the map? You're on mute still.
Yeah, Arno, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. To be honest, this is something that is quite makes quite some buzz, but right now there's no solution. At least if there's a combustion, it cannot be zero emission. So it's you have to be aware. As long as there's a combustion, there's something going out from the exhaust pipe, and this is something that is not zero emission. It can be a very small emission, but it's at least some emission. I'm not against that at all. But right now we have also a lot of solutions like E85, E85, so bioethanol fuel that is quite low emission too. So this is there's some alternative from all cars as well and engines. But right now it's like GPL gas. It has been on trucks and cars for a long time, but as long as there's a combustion, it's not zero emission. So I don't think we're going to find the best solution by make something that is burning. But I wish we have some other, because we cannot count only on batteries. We cannot count only on hydrogen. It could be completely insane if we can create a world with hydrogen for 1 billion vehicles in 10 years. Everything is going to take some time, but at least what we need is the best mix. A better mix. We need 20% diesel, 20% electric, or 40% electric, 20% hydrogen to make a better mix. So we are not dependent of 100% of diesel emission vehicles.
Thank you.
Like how about flammability and safety of each type of fuel?
Yeah, that's correct. We are going to try the last question because we are going to be over time. So we have Cassim, if you want to unmute your microphone. We have a really interesting question about the countries that they cannot really finance this transformation. Cassim, are you there?
It's Cassini, right?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I think he just mute. Yeah, she just mute.
And what can be done to extend the reach of these modes of transportation, specifically for those who maybe don't currently own, or may not have the existing means? I'm thinking more about broad distribution, and what can be done in terms of the cost framework to ensure pickup as we think through the pricing and the cost for all the different modes. Just wanted to hear your thinking around that, because obviously there's the top echelon of society who can afford whatever, and then there are others, and that would be a much broader market and need in terms of reach and offering accessibility to previous populations who may not have had those modes of transportation.
I guess my comment would be, I think from a business case perspective, a financial case perspective, the most suitable markets at the moment are, for example, buses, maybe coaches, and I think public policy increasingly to reduce carbon emissions and to decarbonize, the plan is to try and increase use of public transport. And I think that's probably the best place for retrofit in the short term, at least. And it probably is the most accessible for lower income as well. So yeah, trying to push it out across huge numbers of passenger car vehicles, I think, for example, probably isn't economically viable, at least in the short term, and therefore probably isn't. It's not necessarily the right thing to do. The wealthy people, trying to push it to.
Już postrzelone, gotowe. Położyć, a
What about bicycles and retrofits? That seems like a lower cost proposition, you know, in terms of retrofitting of bicycles.
Yeah, so I think on the bicycle, if I'm on the bicycle, I know that if you look at these companies, which they actually, one of the arguments is that this would be much cheaper if you use your own bike to have an electric bike rather than buy a brand new electric bike designed for it, right? So clearly, one of their arguments is this is a cheaper way for the general public to afford the electric bicycle.
Great.
One thing you have to know, and there's a question that is quite interesting, it's the metal. In fact, the good thing about also retrofitting, it helps to reduce the need of metal, and this is a very big concern for a lot of companies, a lot of people right now. The cost of goods and the cost of supplies. So retrofit is a very good opportunity to reduce the need of metal. It's not the only opportunity. There are many opportunities, but this is something that is quite insane, especially in the world we live in. And right now with the war and the problematic between countries, it's important to reduce as much as we can. We won't reduce totally, but it's very important to make all these efforts.
I've been a personal electric biker for 20 years, at least. My husband builds them and has built them from scratch because what is off the shelf is not adequate, let's say. But yes, it has saved us. Instead of buying maybe 5 bikes over the course of how many years, 15, 20 years, I have 1 or 2. But the motor has been changed, things have been changed. So absolutely, I totally get and understand this, you know, the retrofit idea, and I'm very supportive. And so thank you.
I'm going to need to leave you because I have a direct interview with a French TV channel. So thanks a lot for your welcome, and Julien, we talk soon, and Andrew as well. And everyone who want to reach me, please send my information, and we can discuss later.
Thank you again for your support.
Thanks a lot. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, Arno.
So maybe Juana, you want to conclude? Yeah, close up.
Yeah, yes. Manuel is going to do the closing, Manuel.
Okay.
You are mute.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We invite you to the last closing session on September. We also will share the link of the recording and the link of the presentation. Thank you, Julien. Thank you, Arnaud, for your presentation. Thank you, Andy. This excellent presentation. That's very interesting. And this changes our view about the retrofit.
Thanks for the invitation. Nice to see you all.
Great session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye all.
Thank you.